Hey everyone, it's Hannah. I wanted to quickly ask if you are enjoying the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. It goes a long way in getting the show in front of other listeners. If you listen on a platform that doesn't do reviews, please follow us on social media, like the show, or leave a comment. Thank you. We love you guys, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Are you saying more?
I was saying because of the ice.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah,
man.
displacement.
Okay.
Nope, it is going to sound weird. There's not going to be a ding.
Okay.
There will be no ding.
No
That
dings
second,
today.
little thunk clunk was
I was like,
fun.
we using plastic.
You're listening to The Tales We Tell, a podcast about spooky stories, unsolved mysteries, and local lore. I'm your host, Hannah Parch.
And I'm Katy.
Welcome back.
I almost missed it.
I
'Cause I was thinking about something else.
I was about to say, you look like you almost forgot your line. Oh.
3 words.
One day I'll just forget my whole... I mean, if I think about it too hard, I will stumble on my... the name of the show, who I am, all that
Well,
stuff.
I was thinking, a step ahead, jumping into announcements. And I was also thinking how I had recommended our podcast to somebody. Someone on Facebook was looking for podcast recommendations, and I went to go look through her comments to see if anyone perchance had recommended us. They had not, at least at the time I checked. But one person said, oh, if you're interested in mental health, you should check out this one. And I replied to her, I was like, if you like mental health and spooky, check out The Tales We Tell. And that reminded me, because, ADHD, runaway train thoughts, about the, serious uptick in downloads that we've seen recently.
Yeah.
So I don't know if our listeners are just recommending or if people are leaving reviews so more people are finding it. So if you have recommended our podcast to somebody recently or ever really, or if you've left us a review or anything like that, if you've done anything to kind of help share the podcast, thank you so much.
Yeah, seriously, thank you. Yeah, that one day, whatever day it was, I think it was last Wednesday, it was an episode day, Jarek was texting our little group chat.
We're at 350, 400, 480. I want to hit 500.
Yeah, it was very exciting for our little podcast that I think we usually hit about 200 a week. And so,
This was, in one day.
Yeah, very exciting. And keep recommending and telling your friends, and we
leave
appreciate
reviews and just share it if you see a post on our Facebook or Instagram, which I hope you like and follow. If not, it's the Tales We Tell podcast. Please like and follow. And if you see a fun post, because everything that we post on Instagram gets shared to Facebook, you can just like that, share that even, or comment or something, anything that'll kind of get more views or attraction. And also, if you want to see any pictures or posts, but you don't do the social media, you can still check out our website. It's thetaleswetellpodcast.com. Everything from our Instagram right there.
Yep.
And if you want to support us in other ways too, namely maybe getting some sweet, sweet swag, you should check out our Redbubble store. Just search The Tales We Tell. We've got a couple of different logos, and you can get that on pretty much anything. And honestly, I think I need to go and do a little shopping. It's been a while. I need some new merch. And as always, you can become patrons at patreon.com. All patrons get early access, commercial-free listening, sometimes some fun bonus content, and every now and then we'll do, stickers and send out love notes. And
anytime we get in a new batch of stickers, we always send patrons new stickers.
Which, when I do my shopping, I might see about ordering some Sasquatch stickers with our Sasquatch logo.
Nice.
Which is so cool. Well, both of them, really.
I know.
I don't know why I looked over there, because I didn't see anything. There's not even a Sasquatch of any kind over here. He's just up here.
He's up here, and then we've got
the sticker. I got you.
Sticker that you got me. I know. I try to represent all of our weirdos over there.
Yeah, we're starting to take over this shelf.
Yep, the corn dolls have that shelf. Mm-hmm. Our little creepy
with a couple of crows.
Yep, our little creepy dolls. Mm-hmm. I put some of my crystals up here. Which, I don't know, I need to cleanse my crystals, and I gotta do something.
Could charge them in the full moon.
Yeah, not an eclipse moon like I did last time.
So bad vibes. I think we're gonna take over this shelf next.
Yeah. I know, I really just need to give this whole shelf over to us.
Yes. These other items are the outsiders. You do not belong.
I know, old yearbooks. Russian dictionaries. Although that counts as a...
Yeah, I was about to say, that can actually stay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, do you have any other announcements before I do my one big one? Mm-mm. Okay. So, I have kind of an important announcement today. It's a little off topic of what we normally announce. But I have some friends. Their names are David and Rebecca. And David is looking for a kidney. So his name is David Slachter, and don't worry, I'm going to post a ton of links and information in the show notes for you guys. So don't worry about spelling. So he is a 43-year-old husband and first-time father to a 15-month-old daughter. So his daughter is about the same age as Critter and Tolly. He was born with a rare genetic disease that caused his own kidneys to degenerate. And just weeks before the birth of his daughter, his last kidney failed. And so now he is on dialysis full-time. Just some facts, statistics.
Full-time dialysis is like, what, 3 to 4 times a week?
It's every day.
Oh, it's every day?
Yeah.
Okay.
So 90% of all dialysis patients die within 10 years. And that's, I think, usually due to like infection, and because it makes you immunosuppressed, and
after a while it just doesn't work as effectively.
Yeah. I mean, it's essentially artificially what is the word I'm thinking of? It's doing what your kidneys are supposed to do.
It's an external kidney.
Yes, exactly. But it's not doing the job as well as your kidneys.
It's not efficient.
Exactly. Cadaver kidneys, which would be if you got a kidney from a deceased person, those last an average of 8 to 10 years. So obviously he's on a donor list. Like anyone who needs a kidney is on that list. Those lists also take forever. It's just, who knows when you get it.
It's a long list.
Yeah. But a kidney from a living donor lasts an average of 12 to 20 years. So this would be if someone offered to give one of their kidneys, because you only need one, to him. Kidney donation is actually surprisingly simple. I did not know any of this. It's done laparoscopically. Didn't know that. I thought your kidneys were much bigger and required a larger incision. They don't. Recovery time, I don't know about for him, but for the donor, recovery time is only a few weeks. The risk of complications is lower than that of childbirth, which, like, I don't mean to downplay childbirth, but childbirth is something that happens a lot and people choose to do a lot. And donations, the actual operation tends to be covered by insurance, and then all other costs associated with it, like travel, any like income that you would lose for time out of work, all of that would be covered by the organization that is helping like sponsor this.
Also, I think actually the recovery time for the donor is faster than the recipient, because the recipient has to like really take it easy. They have a lot of time to make sure that there's no rejection of the organ. Yeah.
Whereas you just kind of have to recover from
a little surgery.
Yeah.
A little surgery. It's really invasive.
Yeah.
But still not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Major.
Yeah. So we'll be posting an article written by David's wife, Rebecca, that goes into a lot more detail. She is very smart. I literally got all of my information from her article. So, like, she does a much better job of explaining it. We'll also post links to Renewal, which is the organization that helps facilitate the process of finding a donor and navigating the journey for both donor and recipient. It's kind of like the go-between. I'm also going to post a link for a questionnaire that you can take to see if you're qualified. It's through Mount Sinai. I took this questionnaire. It's super simple. It's not invasive at all. You can literally skip portions of it. Like, there's a part that asked you for your social security number, and I was like, I'm not giving that. And it lets you, it just like carries on. It's like, we don't need that. And it basically tells you if you're like a good candidate or not. And if you are, it'll put you in touch with people who can like either take you through the next steps or answer questions, whatever. So we'll put that link. I'm going to put a link for a Facebook group I think it's called just Finding David a Kidney, if you want to join that and just, again, either find out more or like help spread the word. And then David and Rebecca also gave me permission to just post their email addresses and said that if you guys have any questions to just reach out to them. Mm-hmm. They are the nicest people I've ever met. Can't stress enough. They're just so sweet. Also, if you have any questions and you're not comfortable reaching out to them, you can reach out to the podcast and like we'll be happy to answer what we can or direct you to like whatever. Basically, we just want to like try to get the word out. Like I said, I took the questionnaire. I like started the process. My doctor basically kind of put the brakes on it for me for some reasons. But if you know anyone or if you feel compelled to look into this, again, look at the links in the show notes. And yeah, that's what we have on that.
He doesn't want my kidneys. I've already damaged them.
Oh yeah, you did damage your kidneys. Yikes.
I mean, they're probably still fine.
But yeah, no, don't give a damaged kidney, but only healthy kidneys allowed.
Yep.
All right, well, our story has nothing to do with kidneys.
Awesome.
You ready? And you get to immediately look at your picture.
Cool.
Because today I'm going to tell you about the Fox sisters.
Oh, I know the Fox sisters.
Do you?
Yeah.
Isn't that a great picture?
It really is.
Okay.
I love the spiritualist movement because it's such BS.
And, okay, I love it because
it's also impressive how well they fooled people.
It's also, like, a really badass feminist movement when you, like, get into it, which I will.
Oh, yeah, there's definitely, like, parts that, you could take advantage of or whatever that, women could take advantage of for, like, independence and such like that.
Yeah. So, okay. Margaret Maggie Fox was born October 7th, circa 1833, near Bath, New Brunswick, Canada, to parents John and Margaret. So for clarification throughout this, I will be referring to her mother as Margaret and to her as Maggie. And then her sister Catherine, who went by Kate. She actually went by Katy in some sources, which were spelled the same way that you spelled your name.
Woohoo! Is she Catherine with a Y?
No.
Okay.
But I'm going to be calling her Kate, so
That's fine.
to avoid confusion.
Only person that calls me Kate is my dad.
Oh, well, welcome. Maybe, no, never mind. I was going to say, maybe we can summon him, and then I was like, never mind, he's not dead.
Well, he was already here, he left last week.
So Kate Fox was born, I don't have a day for her, but she was born sometime around 1839 near, again, Bath, New Brunswick, Canada. So they are 6 years apart. John and Margaret had a total of 7 children, one of whom had died, they said in infancy, but some sources also said like maybe around 3. So they had a total of 6 living children, including Maggie and Kate. They have one older daughter named Leah, who I believe was born around 1819. So she's like 20-ish years older than the girls. Like no, did I say that right?
20 years?
1819. The girls are born Kate is born 1839.
So she was for sure born, and
she was like an adult when the girls were like teenagers. Yeah.
Okay.
And then they also had an older son named David, who was also an adult when the girls were like adolescent. So I don't know
I guess everyone did get married and start having kids a lot younger.
Yeah. So all we know is Leah and David are grown. Mm-hmm. Maggie and Kate are still home living with Margaret and John, like when our story takes place, which is 1840, it's technically 1848, but in 1847, the family moves to a small one-bedroom cottage in Hydesville, New York, which is a hamlet in Arcadia, New York, which is just north of Newark. Which, by the way, I was just in upstate New York, and I really wish I had done all this research, like, then, because I would have totally made Jarek go visit these places. Like, we were just in Rochester, and Rochester is, like, a main scene here. Okay. In March of 1848, the Fox family had begun hearing eerie noises in their home. They were hearing knocks, thuds, and cracks. And some of these were loud enough to wake them up in the early morning. Margaret was really superstitious, and she thought that the sounds were supernatural. But John was not superstitious, and he was convinced that they were just sounds of an old house. He was doing the dad thing.
The house is just settling.
The house is just settling. Yep, he was like creaky floorboards, loose beams, the wind.
I don't really want to be in a house that's unsettled. That unsettles me.
Well, you don't want to be in a house that's unsettled?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
I was making a joke.
Oh. I was thinking structurally. I was like, I want to be in a house that's already settled. I don't want to make noises.
I
As
think
my chair
houses
creaks.
just continue to, like, settle over time.
I know.
Because, I don't know, our cabin is very new,
Uh-huh.
and it feels very structurally sound and secure. Like, definitely
Yeah.
feels a lot more stable than our current house.
Yeah.
Which is 120 years old.
Yeah.
And the only noises there are the fridge makes, like, weird creaks and groans.
Yeah.
Like, just, like, running. You don't even have to open the doors. It just goes...
Well, you know why? Because your refrigerator's running.
And doesn't want to be running. I groan when I run, too, or the thought of running. Yeah, but it's just like a weird noise. And whenever Critter's, asleep at night or taking a nap or something, anytime I hear that, I have to stop and listen because I'm like, no, that's the fridge, not him starting to, like, slowly wake up from his nap.
Yeah. It is weird that older houses that you think would already be settled are the noisier ones because our house is old and it.
So maybe they are unsettling because they're not settled anymore.
Gross. I hate that. I want to get our house cleansed again. Okay, so the exact details of this next part of the story, meaning like who said which parts, differ depending on which sources I read. So I just picked one version going forward. So on March 31st, the sounds were getting so bad that Margaret decided she was going to search them out. So she narrowed it down to Kate and Maggie's room. And at this point, Kate is 11 and Maggie is 15. And by the way, it's also a one-bedroom cottage, so it's everyone's room.
That's what I was about to ask. I'm like, are they sleeping in a closet and calling it a room?
It's everyone's bedroom, but like Maggie and Kate are in bed already, and Margaret and John are not.
Okay.
So she narrows it down, I guess, to the bedroom where Maggie
I was wondering
and Kate
if
already
the parents slept in the bedroom and the kids slept in like the great room or the family room or whatever.
I think they all just sleep in the same room.
Okay.
Anyway, so for whatever reason, Margaret like comes into the room where Kate and Maggie are, and for whatever reason, Kate at this point decided to start talking to whatever was making the sounds. And apparently she and Maggie they appeared to have been talking to this something for some time. So Kate said, well, first of all, they named it Mr. Splitfoot, which I hate.
Yeah. I don't like the mental image that conjures.
Yeah. I guess Mr. Splitfoot is just a nickname for the devil.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the
cloven hooves.
Yeah. Hate it. Hate all of it. She addressed Mr. Splitfoot by name, and she said, quote, "Do as I do," and then she snapped her fingers. And then, out of seemingly nowhere, a loud rapping sound seemed to mimic her snaps. Exactly.
But that's a knock, not a snap.
Wow. Snaps, knocks, raps. And then she clapped 4 times. And then 4 knocks again followed. Yes. And I get the idea that, like, sometimes they were doing it, like, in a pattern. Like, they were doing, like just to prove that it had some kind of intelligence. Then apparently she pretended to snap 4 times. Like, she mimicked snapping 4 times. And then there were 4 knocks to answer it. Which to me says that it's a dumb ghost, but whatever.
Or it's watching you. It's not just listening.
Gross.
It's got eyes and ears.
Oh, I hate that. And Maggie is like me. Or, sorry, Margaret is like me. See, I'm already getting them confused. Margaret, the mother, is like me. And she is terrified. But, unlike me, she's like, I'm going to try this for myself. No, Margaret, don't do that.
I mean, what does that prove?
I don't know. But if there's ever a spirit, don't talk to it. I mean, unless you're just saying, please stop.
What if it's lonely, and if by acknowledging it, you're appeasing it, and therefore, like, if you ignore it, what if that just pisses it off, and then he starts, she, I feel like a female entity is more likely to get pissed if it's ignored.
I feel like maybe Margaret should have gotten, like, the family Bible and some holy water. I don't know. So Margaret asks the spirit to count to 10 via knocks or whatever. And it does. And then she's like, all right, I'm really going to test you. And she says, how many children have I given birth to? And it answers 7. And then she's like, okay.
No, 7 knocks.
Yes.
Because there's no voice.
Yeah, true. Mr. Splitfoot is not speaking yet. And then she says, how many are still living? And it knocks 6 times. And then she asks her children's ages, and it answers correctly, including the age of the youngest child that had died. Asked who the spirit had been in life, because apparently Margaret did not like the assumption that it was just the devil, which I love. The spirit somehow managed, presumably through yes or no questions, to convey that it had been a 31-year-old man. He had been dead for 2 years, and he had 5 children. And then Margaret, who probably at this point is, like, maybe a little bit more calm now that she's just talking to, like, a dead guy's ghost and not, like, a demon. She's like, okay, if I invite the neighbors over, will you keep talking to us? And the spirit says, yes. Yeah, or like 2 knocks for yes or whatever. So the following night, a whole bunch of neighbors come over to talk to the spirit. Someone, possibly David, their oldest son, who I guess is around, proposed assigning each letter of the alphabet a number so that the spirit could spell out words, which, oh my gosh, what a long, like...
That'll take forever.
I know. Do the lights thing that the Winona Ryder did in Stranger Things. Like, I don't know.
Except for the whole lack of electricity thing.
Yeah. When does electricity happen?
I don't know, but it probably didn't happen in a 1-bedroom cottage.
In 1848?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm probably right. This would be a perfect time for someone to invent a Ouija board. Go through the alphabet and then be like, just knock when I get to the right letter. So, through this system, they learned more details about the spirit's past life. He had been a peddler, which, does that just mean someone who sold...
It's like a traveling salesman,
okay.
I think. But usually they would have like an actual cart.
Okay.
That's the image that I've got is
okay.
peddling his wares.
Okay.
Also, BT Dubs, electricity, by 1925... still only about half of homes in the United States have electricity in their house.
Wow. That is...
So I don't know the exact year it was invented, but I know that...
In 1848, they did not have it in their homes.
Yeah. It was not common to have in households.
Okay, good. So they find out the spirit was a peddler. They find out that he had also been murdered.
Well, yeah, he was 31.
Well, yeah, true. And that he was buried in the basement. So immediately the neighbors are like, we gotta dig up the basement.
Also, he died 2 years ago.
Uh-huh.
Were all the neighbors also, did they move to the area in the last 2 years so they didn't know this 31-year-old peddler with his 5 children?
Great question.
Where is his wife? Where are his 5 children?
It's a great question. No one knows.
I'm
You have a lot of great follow-up questions that no one thought to ask the ghost. What they did think to do was dig up the Fox's basement. Mm-hmm. Poor family. So they start excavating their, like, dirt floor basement, but heavy rains came.
Because they just had, like, a crawl space, right?
Yeah, probably, or like a cellar.
Probably a root cellar.
Yeah. So heavy rains come. They live near a creek. Something about groundwater. I guess when it rains a lot, does groundwater become more? Yeah. Okay. Anyways, they had to stop.
There's the water table.
Uh-huh.
And even though it's underground, so like, all right, here is land.
Uh-huh.
And it's coming down the edge of the creek.
Uh-huh.
The creek just doesn't stop here. The creek is actually through here. So when the creek water rises, the groundwater table rises too.
Oh. See, I did not know that. I just assumed creek stopped.
We need to find a Bill Nye episode on the water table.
The water table, we do. You'll just explain that to everyone again, right? In a picture. So is there just water underground all the time?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, jeez.
Well, remember the diviners? With the divining rods?
Uh-huh. Finding water?
Mm-hmm. And we would dig a well.
Uh-huh.
Because, wells. Dig the underground and then there's the water.
Huh.
There's another good picture.
How come we didn't cover this in our well to hell? Oh, okay. So there's not water, like, underground everywhere.
I mean, more or less.
Really?
I mean, I'm sure, like... Okay, no, because they're aquifers versus other places. But still, like, more or less, yeah, there's groundwater. And, like, there's the dirt, and there's the water table, and then there's... like solid like bedrock,
right?
And it's not under the bedrock usually.
Huh.
I can't speak geologically for everywhere on the planet, but in general, yes.
Wow.
You dig far enough, especially here in like the coastal plain, you don't have to dig very far at all, and you'll hit water.
Wow. Would our water be brackish that we hit?
No, it would be fresh water, because it's also filtered by the soil.
Wow. I'm learning so much.
That's gracious. Well, you just didn't know about the water table.
I really did not know about the water table. Okay, well, the water table saved the day here. Or the water table stopped the neighbors from further excavating the basement/cellar. However, this did not stop rumors from spreading all around Hydesville. So rumors got around not only about the haunted home that the Foxes lived in, but rumors just spread that they had found bones in the basement, even though they hadn't.
Oh, I thought they did find, like, animal bones or something, like chicken bones or something.
Not that I could find at this point. I think some sources said that they found some bones that turned out to be chicken bones, but everything that I read said that it flooded, or like, they couldn't really excavate things, and then just rumors spread that they had found bones. So.
That was me texting you a video of Bill Nye on the water cycle.
Okay.
I don't know if he actually goes into groundwater, but if he's talking about the water cycle, then yes, I think it's likely.
Okay, great. So more and more people start showing up to the Fox's home just wanting to speak to the spirit, because this is like the coolest thing that's happened. What else are you going to do in Hydesville, New York?
You can't even say it's the coolest thing since sliced bread, because sliced bread hasn't happened yet.
It's not been invented. There's nothing else going on.
Mm-hmm.
And
people are just sitting around slicing their own bread.
Yeah, they are. And then they're like, after we slice this bread, do you want to go to the Foxes and try to talk to that ghost?
Yeah, it's way more entertaining than what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. So people would show up, and then Kate and Maggie would end up serving as mediums for the spirit, because the spirit wouldn't speak unless Kate and Maggie were present. And as more people were showing up, the spirits seemed to be getting bolder. So the sounds would get louder. Sometimes the sounds would even mimic like a death struggle when the spirit would be talking about the murder that happened. So like very entertaining stuff. Like you understand why people would be, that's like a show. And the idea of spiritualism and seances and people acting as mediums was pretty new still in the United States. And this is just like our brief little history. So Franz Mesmer had proposed a theory of natural energy transference between all animate and inanimate objects in the late 18th century.
And thankfully we were kind of over the whole witches are evil thing, or like anything spiritually is the devil, even though this is Mr. Splitfoot.
Yeah. Yeah, we're
Which
past...
I never heard of that nickname for the devil, but I like it.
Mr.
Splitfoot.
Oh gosh. Yeah, we got
At
over...
first I was not a fan, but then I realized, like, oh yeah, that cloven foot,
I hate it.
That's cute.
I don't like it. Yeah, so we've gotten over the hump of like anything magic is bad,
It's evil, and you know, it's 100% the devil, and basically, you know, against the church.
Yeah, and it's all like, I think for a long time it was like all seen as, you know, like other or like outside magic, and
you know, this is not magic. This is not witchcraft.
Yeah, this is almost based in science. The way at least Mesmer was proposing.
Yes, a lot of the spiritualists were like, this is a new branch of science, but some went the other way and said this is a new branch or a new type of religion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very interesting.
It's definitely more of a religion because it's all made up. Science is based in fact and experimentation.
Well, hold on. I'm going to tell you about both science and religion here. So Franz Mesmer was...
Science is my religion.
Franz was doing his own thing. He was combining both. So he was kind of known, I think he was kind of known as like the father of hypnotism.
Yes, you can combine the both. You can use science to create these, you know, specters and whatnot. And a lot of people did. There was a lot of really cool science, technology, and engineering methods for putting on these spiritualism shows. Yes. And that was cool. And that is science, but not the actual specters.
Okay. France.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'll calm down.
That's okay. So he's doing his thing in the 18th century. He came up with the term animal magnetism. He would do healings through like just putting his hands on people's bodies and believing that like you could manipulate energies that way. His beliefs, which again included being able to heal illnesses and ailments through energy transference, gained a lot of popularity between 1780 and 1850. So, like, we're still in this time frame. Mm-hmm. Then we have Emanuel Swedenborg, who was an 18th century Swedish philosopher and mystic.
Seems like a made-up name.
Swedenborg?
Swedenborg. Sounds like a fake name.
For a Swedish philosopher?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, philosopher and mystic, and he gained popularity in the early and mid-19th century. So this is less science, more religion. He believed in an afterlife that consisted of 3 heavens and 3 hells, and he claimed to have spoken with several spirits in all of these realms. And he was like, I think on like Wikipedia, he's described as like a theologian, and like he was claiming to have like visions and like messages straight from God and like stuff like that.
So I'm thinking he might have been trying to do some science experiments. He might have
I think he was maybe just like an extreme...
hallucinated some things.
Yeah, he might have just been like an extremist in his beliefs. Also around this time, you have to remember, the telegraph had recently become a thing. So you have this idea that you could communicate with someone, like for real, who was not in the same place as you.
Through dots and dashes.
Yeah. This is like actual science. Mm-hmm. So Samuel Morse, Morse. Is how we okay. He patented his electric telegraph in 1837. The first telegraph in the United States was sent January 11th of 1838, a distance of 2 miles. And then in 1844, the first long-distance telegraph system was completed, running from Washington, D.C. to Baltimore, Maryland. And do you know what the first official, long-distance message was that he chose to send?
Boobs.
No. The opposite of that. The opposite of that.
But?
It's like terrifyingly
Boobs?
religious.
Man boobs?
It's
God is good. I don't know what.
I said terrifyingly. He wrote, "What hath God wrought?" It's like, I don't know. You invented this. What hath you wrought, man?
Yeah, you are not God.
You hath wrought this. Don't make us scared of these. So, 10 years before the telegraph had come out, 10 years before this has started.
Did you ever read The Martian or watch the movie?
Yeah, uh-huh.
That's where the boobs came from.
Oh. Nice. And then in 1847, so 1 year before the girls start speaking with their spirit, Andrew Jackson Davis, 3 very basic names, he claimed to have spoken to Swedenborg, our crazy guy, while in a trance. So, trances were Franz Mesmer's thing. This guy's doing that and then talking to the religious extremist. He published a book called The Principles of Nature, Her Divine Revelations, and a Voice to Mankind, which apparently just relayed all of the information from his trances. And then, as if predicting the coming age of spiritualism, he said, quote, "All the world will hail with delight the ushering in of that era when the interiors of men will be opened and the spiritual communication will be established." And then allegedly, I say allegedly because I don't believe he actually wrote this on the day it happened, but allegedly on the day that Kate and Maggie began speaking to the spirit in their bedroom, or sometime after, he just went back and dated it. Post-dated. Davis wrote this in his diary, quote, "About daylight this morning, a warm breathing passed over my face, and I heard a voice, tender and strong, saying, 'Brother, the good work has begun. Behold, a living demonstration is born.'"
Ugh.
I would like to request if I'm getting any...
Talk about, trying to ride someone's coattails.
I know! Also, if I'm getting any messages from beyond, please don't make it a warm breath in my face in the morning. Gross.
No.
Get out of here with that.
I hate when I wake up and Shelton's right there in my face and breathing. It's the worst.
Gross. Yeah. A warm breathing passed over my face. Gross. Okay. So we're
Warm. I mean, I guess it's better than a cold breath because then you're like, are you dead? But you're breathing? I don't understand.
Yeah. So we're primed for spiritualism. Primed for some girls talking to ghosts in their bedrooms. We're the United States is ready for this to happen. However, there is just one tiny problem. The girls had started the whole knocking and bumps in their house as a prank on their parents.
And it just snowballed.
It got a little out of hand. So it had started with apples on a string that they dropped down the steps to make it sound like footsteps. Take note, kids, if you are looking for some fun Halloween pranks.
Oh yeah, because we didn't rate this episode, did we? Was this a Dante?
This is fine for kids.
I figured it was.
If you're this far in, fine for you guys. In fact, here's some fun tips for how to prank your parents. And this is probably where it stops because now requires extreme special skills. So soon the girls learned that they could crack their toes. Mm-hmm. And when done against the hardwood floors, the sound amplified. And apparently, made it sound like it was coming from nowhere.
Echoed.
Yeah. So they thought that they would end their prank on the night of March 31st, which was the day before April Fool's, by putting on a big show of like talking to the spirit. And they had even like kind of suggested it to their mom. Like when she kind of started to freak out, one of them was like, "Oh, I know. Someone's just trying to play a trick on us." And then their mom was like, "No, I'm going to ask it questions." Or like their mom like freaked out.
It's the devil.
Yeah. So their mom took it seriously. And then when she asked if the neighbors could come over, they like panicked. Like the prank had gone too far. They were now scared of getting in trouble.
Yeah, it's hard to walk back now.
Yeah, because now they were like, well, if we admit it now, like, it's gonna look like we were trying to, like, it's gonna look like a mean-spirited joke instead of a prank. And
yeah.
So they just, like, they're like,
we'll just roll with it.
We'll go along with it, and, like, maybe we'll find a way out of it. So, like, they'll lose interest, and then we can just forget about it, and we won't ever have to, like, come clean.
Or you can just be like, he's just gone. Like, we keep trying to talk,
Yeah.
and there's nothing.
Yeah.
He just left.
Yeah. So the Fox home is now overrun with these curious believers who want to witness what they believe is this amazing supernatural phenomenon. But then at the same time, the Foxes were asked to leave their congregation at the local Methodist Episcopal Church because their minister believed that they had been engaged in, quote, unholy practices.
Congress with the devil.
Which, like, I mean, kind of makes sense. Like, you're kind of wondering, like, when that was going to happen. Like, well, aren't some people...
Like, we might not be burning people at the stake anymore, but it's still not super accepted in the actual church.
Yeah, like, but some churches surely are going to have a problem with you, like, talking to Mr. Splitfoot. So the family ended up moving out of their home entirely and going to live with David in a neighboring town in an attempt to get away from all of the attention.
A perfect time for the girls to be like, the spirit was attached to the house. We can't talk to him anymore. Bye.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Prank over.
And
in a few years, we'll confess.
Yeah, and they may have done that because, like, I don't know that anything was happening in David's house. Mm-hmm. But news of, like, whatever had been going on in Hydesville had traveled. And it soon reached their sister Leah, who was living in Rochester. And it reached her via a newspaper article. So, like, newspapers were writing about them. And when Leah heard about it, she came home and she confronted her little sisters because Leah don't play no games.
I wonder if Leah didn't teach them a couple of little tricks. Too.
Yeah. So Kate and Maggie confessed to Leah what was going on, but not to their parents. And instead of turning them in or trying to clear the whole thing up, Leah decided to take Kate and Maggie to live with her because she saw an opportunity. And this is where Leah becomes, like, the villain of the story.
I was about to say, exploitation.
Yeah. So back in Rochester, Leah charged visitors $1, which was around $40 today, for visitors to attend a seance with the girls. And Leah would act as the interpreter of these seances, and the girls would just act, I guess, as... The mediums. Which, like, you would think a medium would be an interpreter, but I guess they're just the vessel for the spirit to, like, make noise or whatever. So guests would sit around a table, they would say a prayer, they would sing a song, which seems a bit strange.
No thanks.
And then they would hold hands and be silent until Maggie or Kate would, quote, fall into a trance. And then the rapping sounds would start. And then I guess Leah would, like, tell people what it meant based on however she felt. The girls had gotten really good at cracking their toes by this point, just probably by, like, the fact that they've been doing it so much. And they could do it, like, with their shoes on. They could do it, like, you could be looking at their shoed foot and not see that they were cracking their toes. Like, they were really, really good at it.
I feel like I'm really good at cracking.
Yeah, but I can see you doing it. In November of 1849, they rented Corinthian Hall, which was the largest hall in Rochester. Kate was away for some reason. I guess she was, like, visiting a friend. And so Leah and
Glad
Maggie...
that she was allowed to do that.
I know, thank goodness. Leah and Maggie did the performances there, and they performed for 4 nights. And this was like a really big deal because this was like these were like big crowds instead of just like small.
Yeah, I mean,
private
a
groups.
$1 a person, even if you've got like 50 people in there. That's a lot.
That's a lot. However, these crowds who were like not showing up to participate in a seance, they were there to watch a show.
Mm-hmm.
And most of them were actually critics and like skeptics. They were not enthusiastic believers. And they actually wanted to expose like the performers, as you will, or like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and like figure out what they were doing because they didn't believe it was real. And for 3 days, Leah and Maggie agreed to submit to, quote, investigations by different committees that people like put together.
Did someone say more wine?
Jeez.
Maybe he's a medium.
I'm good on wine.
You're good on wine? Would you like a little more?
Just a little splash.
All right.
It would have been more effective if he had just...
Yeah, that would have been.
Why?
He doesn't know what the episode's about, though.
Oh.
Spiritualism.
Knocking.
Yeah. I knew I heard knocking.
I assume this actually only happened to Maggie, but she had her feet held. Well, maybe it happened to both because they probably thought Leah wasn't on it too. They had their feet held while the noises were happening. They were made to stand on glass plates. They had their skirts tied up around their ankles. There was even a committee of women who took them to a private room and like took their clothes off and like examined their clothes to see if there was like
Not
like
cool.
a sound maker. And like Leah and Maggie, I say agreed to all of this. Probably Leah agreed to all of this and Maggie went along with it, but they couldn't find anything. And like even with like them standing on glass plates and like their feet being held, they were still able to like make these sounds without anyone being able to tell where they were coming from. So they carry on with their like performances. At one point, Andrew Jackson Davis, the guy who like is writing his crazy stuff, he heard about them and invited them to his home in New York City to like watch them perform, I guess. He used his association with them to elevate his own status from obscure prophet to a recognized figure in the movement. Leah would set the girls up on a tour to showcase their, quote, talents. They went to places including...
Well, they are talented performers, but
yeah, and like...
not mediums.
Yeah, they are putting on a show. I will say that. So they went to Cleveland, Cincinnati, Columbus, St. Louis, Washington, Philadelphia. I'm sure they went several other places. But like to young girls who are from a small town in New York, like upstate New York, this is like a big deal. And also to girls who started this thing as a prank on their parents and like I
Now
just
they're celebrities, basically.
yeah. So we did touch on
They're
this.
like the original influencers.
I know. So, yes, it is great that the idea of 2 women performing essentially magic in public are not getting hanged for witchcraft. We love that. However, Kate and Maggie were not happy with like these performances. Also, for as many believers as they had coming to their performances, they had just as many critics who were publicly calling them frauds.
Oh, yeah. And meanwhile, knowing that they are frauds, like
Exactly.
that has to be very stressful. That has to weigh on your conscience a lot.
Yeah. Some people even correctly guessed how they were making the noises. Like some
Well,
people...
they held their feet, right?
Yeah.
So, like...
But like no one took their shoes off and was like, okay, now do it. Like, let me watch your toes while you do it. But like some people like correctly guessed, like, I bet they're using their toes. I bet they're cracking their toes. And like, can you imagine reading that somewhere and being like, I gotta still go perform? Some doubters insisted on putting cushions between their feet at a show in Buffalo. I guess these were people who didn't think to take their shoes off, but who thought we can put cushions between their feet. And this did muffle the sound, so they weren't able to make the loud cracking sounds. However, Leah, like, shitty as she is, she was really good at this job she had created for herself. She was like, well, the negative energy just drove away the spirits. The spirits are only going to show up if you believe in them. Like, they're like fairies, guys. Like, they only show up if you believe in them. Yep. So, as early as November of 1849, which is when they had booked that Corinthian Hall performance, the girls had been trying to find, like, a public way to end all of this. Mm-hmm. So, during one seance, they had spelled out, "We will now bid you farewell." And then they had remained silent for 2 weeks. They had done no more knocks or rappings or whatever. But Leah was...
she was not ready to get rid of her, say goodbye to that cash cow.
Yeah, she was persuasive. And, like, I don't know, like, no one has recorded, as far as I can tell, details of, like, exactly how Leah forced them to continue, whether she just threatened them.
She was probably just a manipulative personality.
Yeah.
You know, just a, like, oh, if we stop, you know, like, it's just us, we only have each other, nobody's taking care of us, and, like, aren't you comfortable with this lifestyle that we have now? And if we stop, there will be no more money. You'll have to get married, and your prospects will be low, and, you know, it's just manipulation, I bet.
Yeah. And Leah at the time was, I don't know if she was a widow or a divorcee, but she was a single mom. And so, like...
So she was motivated.
Yeah, she was very motivated to keep the cash flowing in. Mm-hmm. By 1850, hundreds of people were now claiming to be able to channel spirits by rapping, which is what they called this particular, I don't know, way of talking to spirits. And spiritualism as a movement was spreading through Great Britain as well as the United States. Mm-hmm. All right, so now I just have to read you a quote from the Parish Review because it just said it better than I could possibly say it without plagiarizing. From the Fox sisters, the phenomenon of spiritualism emerged not as some shadowy occult practice or roadside attraction, but as an exciting way of reconciling the ineffable mysteries of the soul with the complex realities of a modern, rapidly industrializing nation. Newly respectable, it could count among its proponents Thomas Edison, the anti-slavery leader William Lloyd Garrison, and many prominent women's rights advocates based in Rochester, the Foxes' adopted hometown. This last part I just put in here because it's funny. A conspicuous number of the new adherents were from scientific backgrounds. A physician from New England named Dr. Phelps reported that his windows had shattered spontaneously, his clothes had been torn without human interference, inanimate objects had danced together on his floor, and weirdest of all, turnips inscribed with mysterious hieroglyphs had surged forth from the living room carpet. Which I would like to know more about that situation. So if anyone knows about Dr. Phelps from New England and his turnips, please let me know. So spiritualism allowed women to not only make money of their own, it also allowed them to have public influence regardless of their background. Mm-hmm. This is also such bullshit. But because it was believed that they were speaking, or that the words they were speaking were coming from spirits, often like the spirits of men, they held more value than if just a woman was saying them. So, like, this is how women were able to, like say shit that mattered.
This is, you know, like, there was a wealthy businessman who died a few years ago, and he's here talking about how he owes all of his success to his wife.
Yeah.
And how men should value their wives and...
Yes,
treat
literally.
them as equals in the home.
Yeah. So as a result, spiritualism became one of the primary ways that radical ideas of the time, such as women's suffrage and were disseminated. Which, like, I love. I'm all for, like, a fraud if you're going to be like, oh, I'm going into a trance. Oh my gosh, guys. Benjamin Franklin is here, and he's saying that women should have the right to vote? Oh my gosh.
Women are not second-class citizens?
Oh my gosh, guys, it's so weird. Benjamin Franklin is saying that...
Hold on. I can't be hearing this properly, right?
Benjamin, say again. Say again, Benjamin. Really?
Wait, Thomas Jefferson is chiming in.
Wow, he's saying he was wrong about slavery? Oh my gosh. Guys, are you hearing this? Also, it posed no threat to the patriarchy because, and like, as we all know, successful things cannot pose a threat to the patriarchy or they can't be successful because, quote, the very features possessed by the so-called weaker sex, nervousness, heightened sensitivity, and a delicate constitution, were what supposedly made them the best candidates for mediumship in the first place. So it's kind of a win-win for women. You get to...
So I've heard, I've listened to several different podcasts that have covered, you know, the Fox sisters, as well as just kind of different stories within the spiritualist movement. Mm-hmm. And this is the first time anyone's kind of highlighted the impact that it's had on basically women's rights.
Yeah.
And feminism, and I love this.
Right?
Because, like, the second you said it, like, oh, it's good for women, I'm like, I can see how, yes, there are lots of opportunities for women, and, like, you can just, there's so much to build on from
Yeah, yeah, and, like...
Just simple, like, the independence of, like, I'm a medium.
Mm-hmm.
That's income stream without having to rely on
a man,
parents, or a husband.
Yeah, and, like, I mean, really, I mean, the story isn't great because, you know, Maggie and Kate are being manipulated by Leah, but they essentially created this movement, and Leah...
What is it, like, you know, people have to, you know, like, suffer for future generations kind of a thing? Like, yes, it's unfair to them, but their sacrifice... opened up the door for and like paved the way for this other greater movement, or like these, you know, like, what is it, you don't know how far the ripples of your actions go.
Yeah,
there was at least positive ripples for there.
I agree. And really the thing that got me onto this was I've been listening to I actually listened to 2 podcasts recently, and I'm trying to remember. One was You're Wrong About, and one was, I think, Criminal recently did one. And it was about the, I'm going to say it wrong because I can't remember the name of it, but the 2 little girls who did the pictures of the fairies. Do you know what I'm talking about? Mm-mm. It was like 1912 or something. It was like around turn of the century, and these 2 little girls basically faked these pictures of fairies, where if you look at them now, like, it's very clear that they're fake pictures of fairies. Arthur Conan Doyle was like one of the really big like proponents of like, these are real pictures, fairies are real. And they talked a lot in at least one of the podcasts about like this whole movement of spiritualism and like why people wanted to believe in it, and like how women were so instrumental in it.
Like women like Kelly. We said you were going to bust in, and here you are.
Did, because your dad didn't close the door. Hello.
His sacrifice paved the way for her.
Yeah.
Her gain. Hi, good girl.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, go ahead.
Okay. Anyways, the fairies. They come in later. I want to say Cottingham fairies.
Okay.
Anyways, someone correct me. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Okay, so... in 1852, Maggie, who is now 17, met Elisha Kane, who was a famous Arctic explorer. So despite a 13-year age difference and Elisha not really believing that Maggie is a medium, the two, by most accounts, fell in love.
I like that you say by most accounts, because she is 17, and I understand this is back in the day.
Yeah.
But still, that's predator behavior.
Yeah, and
13 years is not that bad of an age gap, unless
one of these people is a teenager. Yeah, this is true. And like
if I were, if Shelton were 13 years older than me, that would be fine. I've dated people
Honestly.
who are 13 and more years older than me. But the 2 times that I have had a significant age gap like that,
Mm-hmm.
I was well into my 20s.
Yeah, just fine.
I was an adult.
Well, and I also say by most accounts because it wasn't like there are some accounts that said I don't know, it's like almost disputed whether or not they were in a relationship or in love or I don't know.
Maybe she just saw him as a way out.
Right. So the account that I'm going with is they fell in love. They were in a relationship for at least 4 years, so at least long enough for her to like get to legal. He promised to marry her one day, and she, like you said, saw that promise as her way out of this like life she did not want to be in. Like she had accidentally trapped herself in this like ruse.
How one simple mistake can really shape the rest of your life.
Yeah. Elisha's family did not like Maggie at all. They considered her, quote, a backwoods purveyor of profane heresy. And Elisha didn't really have a backbone, and he was afraid of like marrying, like the consequences
wimpy
of
little mama's boy.
He was afraid of the consequences of marrying someone that his family didn't like.
I mean, on one hand, like, yes, it is harder if your family does not approve of your partner.
Yeah.
But they don't, at the end of the day, they're not the end all be all. If you have a close and good relationship with your family, yes, and they don't like your partner, yeah, maybe you should be more open-minded to, like, well, maybe they see something that you don't.
Right.
But also, like, if you're not close with them, if you don't have a strong relationship, or if they're just very, very different, and it's like, you know, like, oh, they're super religious, but you're not super religious, and there's no other red flags that they're complaining about other than their lack of religion.
Yeah.
Just ignore it.
Yeah.
It's just, I know, I have a friend who, her first husband, his mother-in-law, she was god awful, and like they were in town visiting, and they were all planning to go out to dinner, and I was like, okay, well, I should probably head on home, and my friend was like, wait, do you want to come to dinner with us? And she's like, please come and be my buffer. And I was like, hell yeah, you've told me horrible stories about this woman. I would love to be there and be your buffer.
Gosh.
And sure enough, somehow the topic of tattoos comes up.
Oh, gosh.
Not to mention, mother-in-law's second husband was in the military and has multiple tattoos.
Right.
She still has the audacity to say something negative about tattoos, or maybe it's like tattoos on women specifically.
Oh,
my friend has tattoos. I also have tattoos.
Right.
And so, like, it's an obvious, like, underhanded, like, backhanded dig of, like, oh, I'm not insulting you, honey. I was just speaking in general terms. And I just kind of interjected with I'm like, oh, well, I disagree. I think tattoos are great. And, like, here's my, like, real nice, sunshiny, I dare you to argue with me statement. Like, it would have made her look bad to argue with me, statement on tattoos. And, like, I think there was a couple of other little things, but I remember that was the first one that I could see, like, I felt my friend, like, visibly just kind of relax.
Yeah.
And, like, oh my gosh, for the first time, somebody has my back.
Aww.
Somebody just defeated the dragon lady. Like, and then I was just like, suck it. She is also Southern, so it was that, like, fake Southern sweetness. And I was like, oh, you want to play this game? Yeah. I'm also from the South, honey. Yep. I will play this game. Bless your heart.
Bless your heart.
All right.
Okay, so Elisha has no backbone.
Neither did my friend's
Right.
Actually, he had some nerve, though, because he was just a piece of work.
Oh, okay. Tell me about that later.
Oh, I will.
Okay.
Menace. Men like him are awful.
Well, eventually in 1856, they did have a private, like, ring exchange ceremony that was, from what I could tell, like, unofficial, just between the two of them.
So they had a wedding but never signed a marriage license.
Yeah, like, it wasn't legal. It was just, like, well...
Like what Chilton and I did in Greece.
Yeah. So they did this right before Elisha left on an expedition that would first take him to England and then to Havana, Cuba.
He died on the way, didn't he?
Well, he died in Havana.
Okay.
Yeah. In February of 1857.
Did he get some sort of
Tropical
disease?
Not from what I could tell. What I read was, like, he was in poor health and he went to Cuba to try to, like, recover his health, and it just didn't work. Because, like, you know, change in climates does not really cure things.
No, it might alleviate some symptoms.
Yeah. Yeah. And his family, of course, refused to acknowledge their private ceremony.
Their union.
Yeah. And they excluded Maggie from his estate, from any inheritance. And Maggie just, like, fell into this awful grief. And she turned to drinking to try to numb the pain. She did.
I mean, let's be real. She's been living a miserable...
She's been through so much.
She's been living a lie for years.
Yeah. Like, since she was a child.
She's been feeling trapped.
Yeah.
Trapped in a lie, in a life she's been forced to live in.
Yeah.
She finally had something for herself.
Yeah.
And she didn't get to keep it and was denied any, connection. Like,
Yeah, because she was 15 when this started, and it's like, cool, so, like, your entire, like, adolescence has either been, like, you like performing...
The one bright spot in the last, like, 7 years, because they met when she was 17, so she'd been doing this for at least 2 years when they met.
Yeah. She did eventually convert to Catholicism, which is something that Elisha had always, like, encouraged. Because I got the impression it was, like, he encouraged it because he thought that she would, like, enjoy it, not because he, like, wanted her to
also might be one more tick in the pro column to make his parents not hate her as much.
Well, I don't think he was Catholic. I got the impression that they were Protestant, and he was just like, hey, Catholicism has a lot of, like, ceremony to it. You might like this. And Maggie also vowed to abandon spiritualism. Meanwhile, Kate had gone in the opposite direction.
About to say, she was younger, so she, even more impressionable, probably more likely to, go with it.
Yeah. She had married a spiritualist. She had, like, just embraced everything full throttle. She, like...
I wonder if they both were like, you're like, actually a fraud, right? I mean, you're totally a fraud, too, right? Yeah, like
you're just
we're like both faking it, right? All right, cool.
I'll
teach you some tricks if you teach me some tricks.
Yeah,
and like,
yeah.
Maybe we could start our own show, little husband-wife duo.
Well, so she, like, basically went on to, like, perfect her art as, like, a medium. So she started translating spirit messages.
That's right. Cut Leah out of it.
Yeah, exactly. She would sometimes write one spirit message while she was speaking another one. She would make words spontaneously appear on blank cards. I don't know how she did that. And she would call forth spirits of deceased loved ones, as well as famous figures like Benjamin Franklin. And she, like, fully rode the wave of spiritualism, like, especially through, like, the Civil War, when it really surged. People were suddenly losing, almost everyone was losing a family member.
People were dying left and right.
Yeah. Famously, Mary Todd Lincoln held seances in the White House. But eventually, Kate became so worn out by,
the demand.
The demand. Essentially, she was also a fraud. So, like, she's also worn out by, like, having to keep up with, now everyone is, like, now she's not the only one doing it. Now there's, 100 other mediums in town.
It's not her proving herself to the skeptics. It's
her fighting for her place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
meeting the demand and besting the competition.
Yeah, exactly.
Like pulling out new tricks, like words appearing on cards.
Exactly. It's like you constantly have to be getting better. So eventually she became so worn out by all of it that she also began drinking. So now, like, both sisters are essentially alcoholics. In 1888, Maggie made a public confession at New York's Academy of Music. And the New York World published an interview with her in anticipation of this confession. In the interview, Maggie said that her main motivation in doing this, or for finally coming clean, was she was pissed off at Leah, which, like,
surprise, surprise.
No one blames you. We can assume that, like, a lot of that was for exploiting her and Kate when they were children, but she said it was because Leah had been criticizing Kate publicly for her drinking, and she had tried to have Kate's children taken away from her. It's like, Leah, stay in your own lane, girl. Like, get away from here. At the confession, she basically said, like, we've been faking it the whole time. This is how we've been doing it. She demonstrated how she and Kate had been making the cracking sounds with their toes. Kate was in the audience to show support the entire time, and she confirmed everything.
So that was going to be my thing. I'm like, okay, was her sister aware that she was confessing because she'd been riding this wave? So yeah, good.
Kate was there.
I'm glad that this was like a mutual, like, we're done, we're out, like, go for it. I will support you.
Yeah. So Kate was there. However, several people doubted the confession, which is like, guys, give them a break. Like, you're mad if they do it and say it's real, and you're mad when they, like, come clean and tell you the truth. Leah, of course, was there, and she was like, oh, it's all a lie. They're just saying that for the money. Because Maggie had been paid, like, for her appearance there. She was paid $1,500 for her appearance.
Oh, dang.
And I don't know if that's, like, in today's money, because in today's money, $1,500 would be $48,000, which is a lot of money. And, like, truthfully, if someone was like, here's $50,000 to come, like, say that everything you were doing for the last however many years was fake, I'm like, oh, I don't know. Give it some thought.
I mean, shoot, even if it was real and she was being asked to say that it was fake, like, I feel like if it was something like that was, you know, if she was actually talking and communing with spirits, that would be something that she would have to really believe in.
Yeah.
And if it's something that you really believe in, I don't think there's any amount of money that you can pay someone.
Yeah, I agree. However, a year later, Maggie recanted her confession after she realized that carrying on with the ruse was, like, essentially her only source of income. So, like, she confessed and then very quickly realized that she didn't have any other way of making an income because she wasn't married and
somehow had to preserve.
And, like, women didn't have any opportunities except to pretend to be mediums.
Had to support that drinking habit.
Yeah. So she claimed that her spirit guides had made her confess, but no one really believed her. She tried to continue holding seances, but it the damage kind of been done. She did reveal several medium tricks under a pseudonym, so she kind of did the
there's the masked magician back in the late 90s, maybe early 2000s. Remember the masked magician? There was a magician / illusionist who had a special and hid his identity, but he revealed a lot of tricks. He's like, here's a popular trick, like shooting a gun and catching the bullet with your mouth.
Yeah.
So they show the trick, and then he breaks it down and shows how it's done.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, so
But he concealed his identity so that no one in the, magic community could...
Yeah. So I think she essentially tried to do that, which, I would think, unless it's just, the movement's not over yet and people don't want to hear that, it didn't really work. She wasn't successful at all in the industry again. Leah died in 1890. She was estranged from Maggie for the rest of their lives, and I would assume she was estranged from Kate also, but it didn't specify. Kate would die 2 years later. It said while on a drinking spree, so I assume she died of alcoholism. And then Maggie died 8 months later in 1893. In 1904, skeletal remains were found underneath the old Hydesville home that were dated to 50 years prior. However, after much analysis, they were found to be a mixture of various bones, all likely from animals. They were not human bones. There was like one of the articles ended on that, and actually one of the podcasts I listened to, which I think was stuff you missed in history class, ended on that note, which is like, and they found these bones that were dated to 50 years prior, which was like right when they started. Yep. But then like almost every article is like, and they were not human bones. They were so the general consensus is that it was either a prank that like either the girls had placed them there some time ago and no one had ever discovered them, like placed them there to try to corroborate their story, or someone else had just gone and like put them there because of all the hype. But despite the girls' confession and like basically saying we made this whole thing up,
well, by then the movement had kind of taken on a life of its own.
Yeah.
So even people trying to be like, this isn't real.
Yeah.
There's too many other voices saying, this is real.
This is real. Yeah.
Look at this new thing, and there's a lot of innovation to it, too.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, even though they essentially said what we started was, like, entirely based on a lie, it was all a prank that just, like, got out of hand, the spiritual movement, like, which they started, like, surged on without them. It peaked in the 1920s, and it even had a rebirth in the 1970s. Which is insane to think of, like, over 100 years later. And, like, technically is still around today. Mm-hmm. Like, it hasn't died. Like, there's still people who,
there's
like...
still mediums.
Yeah, and it's, like, all because of the Fox sisters. And because of their prank that they pulled.
Again, you never know how far the ripples of your actions go.
Yeah. So, that's the story of the Fox sisters, and, that's also the story of how spiritualism as a feminist movement.
Catalyst for feminism.
Yeah. So.
Well, awesome.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. Yeah. Cause I think I first heard about the Fox sisters on Lore. And like, no shade to Aaron Mankey.
Yeah.
But I don't believe he ever mentioned or like delved into the relationship between the Fox sisters, the spiritualism movement, and feminism.
Yeah.
And any other podcasts, because I think I've heard the story a couple of other places too. Mm-hmm. I just can't remember where. And none of them had ever kind of drawn that connection. Yeah. But like, it's pretty obvious to be like, definitely. So again, like, no shade on anyone else who covered them without that. I really liked hearing a story that I already knew. Yeah. But you know, it's almost like a new facet of it. Yeah, yeah. And that was what drew me into it, was just the mention of it in a story, again, about fairies, not about them. And what made me want to go back and look at it. So, if you find yourself thrown back in time, first of all, figure out what period of time you're in, because that's very important. And whether or not sliced bread is popular or not. Yes. If you are a couple hundred years earlier, you want to stay away from any mention of spirits. Yeah. That is bad. That will get you burned at the stake. However, if electricity is kind of a thing, but not in homes, then maybe start being like, oh, the spirit of... I'm talking to a spirit. Some dead person said something, and then maybe figure out how to crack your toes. And also start predicting the future, too. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. And maybe read up on history, because you got to predict like the near future for it to really be... Yeah, to have an impact. I would be so bad at that. I'd be like, electricity will be in the homes. Well, I mean, also, like, and you've got to make it, like, little things, too. If it's right before, like, Lincoln's assassination or something, you can't be like, somebody's going to shoot the president. You'll get arrested for that. Then they're going to be like, you were in on it. And you're like, no, I wasn't. Yep. Yeah, they will. But they will definitely arrest you. Yeah, they will, for sure. So, well, thanks for listening. And we'll be back next week with something spooky or crimey or
Local-ish.
Local to somewhere.
Local to somewhere. So we'll see you guys next week. Bye.